Hi and welcome back to Real Opinions. Today I'm going to be covering The Greatest Showman, which I did not anticipate in seeing, but here we go. Just right off the bat, I'm going to say if you think you are going to love this film, then you are. That's just exactly what it is. It is a popcorn flick through and through. It's not meant to leave a lasting impression, except maybe if you buy the soundtrack and listen to it on repeat. This isn't a film for critics, and I'll be going into that point later on. It's exactly what it presents, which is that it's just a show. It may present themes of togetherness and acceptance and celebrating the human spirit, which is a quote from the film, but really it's all just surface level to make you just have a bit of fun for 90 minutes, or maybe it was 2 hours. The time flew by when watching it. The reason I'm just kind of speeding through this section in particular is just because I want to try and get to the more kind of contextual points without making this a really long, rambly video, which I find the contextual points more interesting than the film itself. But anyway, that will come in a section afterwards. For now, more on the film. Song-wise, I didn't think any of the songs were particularly amazing. Mainly, I think it was because I didn't like the production on all of the songs, where it is sort of traditional musical style, but it's also very overly produced, very modernly produced, and quite electronic sounding. And that's not to mean that like they'll break into a synth anywhere. The production is very clean, and whenever they cut into someone singing, it's suddenly clear that they're going from production audio to the song in a very noticeable way. Like, some people's voices change completely because it's not actually their voice. And the songs, I just don't find particularly captivating. None of them I found awful. That sounds really negative. But like, there wasn't a bad song, is what I mean. There wasn't like one that stood out for me, like rolling my eyes through the whole time. It was just they were all on the same level for me. And like, I didn't really have one that stood out more than the others. I did like the showcasing of 3 particular moments throughout, which is one is just the very opening credits. Sitting down for this, I thought, I'm not really going to enjoy this, but maybe I'll have a bit of fun with it. And like, to kind of do like a mini timeline, for the first 30 seconds, I was still in that mindset. And then for the next 30 seconds, I actually thought, maybe this is actually going to be quite good. If you just listen to the first minute of the soundtrack, you'll kind of get what I mean. It has a really good way of drawing you in right at the very beginning, and it makes you, like I said, for me it kind of suspended my belief of, like, maybe this is actually going to be quite good as a musical, and then it goes into the rest of it. But the showcasing of the love song between Zac Efron and Zendaya, and another song involving Zac Efron and Hugh Jackman. God, I was going to say Hugh Hefner for the longest time. Both of which just because they are the most creative set pieces in the entire film. The Hugh Jackman, Zac Efron one is them in a bar, and it does some funny things involving them drinking and the placement of bottles and things that wouldn't be out of place in a classical musical in the best way. And the other song, was Zac Efron, Zendaya, like a love song, which would be in the bottom half of the actual songs listing, but it was the way that it was showcased, I thought was just more interesting than the rest of them. The actual plot of the film is just as linear as any biopic that you can expect, which I actually didn't mention that. So it is a biopic. It is based on the life of P.T. Barnum, who is the first circus showman, really, and he was known for starting the idea of the freak show. And this is a very, very, very loose biographical film about him. The story is very linear, like no one's going to have a problem following the story, but the way in which it's pieced together is very haphazard. They don't delve into any of the characters to any great depth, but again, that is, as I pointed out in the very beginning, that's the whole point, really. It's a very surface level film. It's just there to provide you entertainment, and that's a lot of what the film is kind of pointing out. Before I go into my fully contextual points, I'll just reiterate, if you think you're going to like this film, you will. If you don't think you're going to like this film, well then I think you're just going to end up the same with me, which is that either you're going to hate it or just think it's boring, or maybe, I don't know, if you overthink these things like me, you'll find the contextual stuff interesting, which is what I'm going to go into. So interesting film for a lot of reasons, actually. The more it's stuck in my mind quite a bit, actually, just for, like I said, all these additional reasons, which is that the main thing that I'm going to go into is the idea of it kind of being I hesitate to say this, but like critic-proof film, because that I don't like the wording of that because it makes it sound like you should be talking about a film that's infallible or like perfect. But what I mean by that is that it spends a lot of its time just emphasising the fact that it's just entertainment. It's just there to make you smile and nothing else. And In some ways that's admirable, because it is just, like, it's not holding itself to any loftier heights. Like, sure, there are moments where it goes into humanitarian points, but it's not trying to be like an Oscar film where it's trying to be overly dramatic. It is just there to provide you entertainment. I think on one hand, like, that's what I mean by critic proof. I mean that it feels wrong for me to basically go in saying, well, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, because in many ways then the counter argument is just, well, I only did it to make people have fun, and a lot of people have had fun watching this, so did I actually do anything wrong? And I kind of find that interesting, especially as it brings it into the film quite a lot. Like, a recurring character is a critic that keeps going to P.T. Barnum shows, and funnily enough, they picked an actor from House of Cards, which is known as being the most boring character in House of Cards by far, and they make him the most boring character in this, so I think he's been typecast very well. It's not like Ratatouille, like the guy has an emotional arc by the end, but he kind of represents this, like, turning their nose up at basic entertainment because it is just basic entertainment, and not appreciating, what it's just trying to do, which is just make people smile and laugh. And, like, for most of that, I found that fine, and actually rather, like, enjoyable, I think, because it was, like, reassuring to switch your brain off, and that makes this film much more enjoyable. But the problem that I had with this character is that then they kind of turn back on it a bit near the end, where he starts backhandedly praising the show. He uses a line which is that, like, some might say it was a show praising humanity or something to that effect. I don't know, I felt like this film never got past the idea of these people are more than freaks, and I'm saying that in the context of it was a freak show. That was the context for when they were, like, presented to people. I just felt like none of the acts got anywhere near the development as Zac Efron, Hugh Jackman, his wife, Rebecca Ferguson's character, even, like, Zendaya. Like, all the pretty people get their moments, and then, like, the character that gets the most time of the acts is the bearded lady, and that's only because she sings, and the most time that she ever gets is the This Is Me song. And so I don't think that it can fall into this, like, it's about embracing every type of person, because they really don't. Like, there is a line very early on in the film where it's like people are obsessed with the exotic and the macabre, but that's why we stare at it. And I think that it never got past that point of you're staring at it because it's different. I never felt like they really reached out to anything truly empathetic with the people. People might not agree with me on that, and I think mainly because the This Is Me is, like, the full single from this musical. Like, it's the one that they're really pushing, which is the most humanitarian song on the entire soundtrack, which, fine to disagree. Another point that I think weirdly factors into this idea of this is just entertainment is because this is the most rose-tinted biopic I have ever seen in my entire life. It's not a biopic anymore, it is fantasy, like, fully, and I'm not saying that just to have a hot take. It is ridiculous. It's showmanship. Like, that is the point of it. It is, like, when they have a backdrop, when the characters are on a rooftop, you don't think... Like, I didn't think, oh, that's just bad VFX work. I thought that was the point. Like, it's meant to look like a painted matte drawing, like, and it's because it's his kind of idealist dream world of show business, and this is what he wants to make the world. But then later on, it kind of dips into stuff where you think, you just don't have to use that. Like, it has stuff where the animals are performing, and it makes it look like the elephants just love performing, when really, in the actual situation, there'd be people with whips hitting them all the time, and they'd be shoved into cages, and the animals are presented very positively. It's just weird. It had, like, a weird feeling, to the point where I just, like, it then kind of shifted it to me thinking, what else are they kind of covering up to it? And just looking into P.T. Barnum, Jesus Christ, even for the time period, he's not a good person. I'm just going to quote a mini paragraph from the Wikipedia page to give an idea of who this person was and why it's darkly funny that it's about Hugh Jackman now standing up saying you can be whoever you want to be. In 1835, when he was 25, he began his career as a showman with his purchase and exhibition of a blind and almost completely paralysed slave woman, Joyce Heath. whom an acquaintance was trumpeting around that it was actually George Washington's former nurse and was 161 years old. Though slavery was outlawed in New York at the time, he exploited a loophole that allowed him to lease her for a year. Heath died in February 1836 at no more than 80 years old. Near the end of her life, Barnum had worked her 10 to 12 hours a day, and after her death, he hosted a live autopsy of her body in a New York saloon. Jesus. There, spectators paid 50 cents to see the dead woman cut up as he revealed that she was likely half her purported age. So, you can see the detachment between him saying to a bearded woman, "You're beautiful," and in real life he rented a paralysed blind woman, worked her 12 hours a day until she died, and then cut her open in a bar and sold tickets. Jesus Christ. And that is the in early life and career of the Wikipedia page, and I don't want to go through the rest of it because I feel like I'll turn it almost into like a mini podcast just going through how awful this person was. Okay, wait, no, actually, one more. Because I got wrapped up in the Wikipedia page. The character in the film, which is 22 and a dwarf, who becomes he dresses up as Napoleon in the show. It's another thing of, if you're different, like, you can still be who you want to be. This is great in the film. When in reality, the dwarf, General Tom Thumb, aka the smallest person that ever walked alone, was then 4 years of age, but stated to be 11. By 5, he was drinking wine and smoking 7 cigars for the public's amusement. I assume from the way that's worded, 7 cigars at the same time, so they shoved 7 cigars into a boy of 5's mouth, lit them all up, and told them he was a dwarf Napoleon. It's just cruel. It's just awful and cruel. And that's what I kind of find so fascinating with this film, is that it's because it's about a truly, truly awful person, and they've turned it into such a magical film. Like, it's so... He does have... people might be arguing, around the second act he does some crueler stuff. Not nice is the worst that he gets, not nice. But still, like, it's such a departure from reality. And to then say, in the film, don't think about it too much, just have fun. And it ends with a quote, which is such a positive quote from the guy. And when you just think of all the awful things he does, it's so tone deaf, it's so darkly comedic, that I wish that they made a realistic P.T. Barnum film now, and so that you could do The Greatest Showman followed by the double bill of, now here's who he actually was. I understand that with every biopic, that should come with air quotes for this film, for this entire review, but with every biopic, you know, you could always point out, well, this thing isn't real, but obviously this thing isn't real. And I think people sometimes take a grudge if you say this isn't how it actually happened, because you've got to make differences for adaptation, and you've got to make stuff more dramatic. But so much just changed beyond belief. Yeah, I've rambled on about this too long. But yeah, that was The Greatest Showman. An interesting film. Very interesting. Yeah. Ta-da!